all runs through her, all the money.
But I'm trying to get them to realize that it's supposed to be technical. It's a fine place.
Be sure I'm right. I was wondering what else he's doing.
Okay. Hey, Thomas. Yeah.
We got one missing.
I had a move. That's why I'm saying. Oh, okay. I didn't want you to be surprised, not that you was, all right, not that you really.
No, I know. But you didn't want to hurt my feelings, did you?
His name is,
I sure did. Oh, we got some.
Good.
Is that what that is?
Okay.
You guys ready? Yeah. Good evening. We'll call the Burlington City Council March 4th, 2014, a meeting to order. I'd like to welcome everyone here tonight and ask that you return. At this time, we'd ask that you turn off all electronic devices. And I would ask that you pray with me. Lord, we're meeting today to conduct matters of business. You are indeed the giver of all good gifts, and we thank you today for all of your blessings, for the successful outcomes of our city, for all of our staff members, the citizens of this great city and this council. Guide our hearts and our minds in the spirit of fairness, right thought, and speech. Impart your supreme wisdom upon our activities so that our affairs may reach a successful conclusion. Give us insight to lead with integrity, that our decisions may reflect what is right and good. Be with us in our deliberations and help us to be wise in the decisions we make for the good of all those who have placed their trust and confidence in our leadership. Thank you for being our source of guidance today. Amen. Also, I'd like to remind you, Councilmember Butler is not here tonight, as you can see. He is out of town on business. This time, the next item on the agenda will be a presentation to council. We would ask that Ms. Runner from Duke Energy please come forward. And while she's getting set up, we'd also like to ask Davis Montgomery, who is also a part of Duke Energy and an alderman of the town of Elon, if he would be recognized as well. Welcome.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. And also, it's my understanding that Mr. Evans Taylor, who is a senior VP for Program Manager from Duke Energy. Welcome to both. Thank you for being here.
Good evening. Thank you, council members. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we're good. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, my name is Valencia Roner. I am the program manager for residential neighborhood programs for Duke Energy. Thank you for recognizing my colleagues who are with me here this evening. I would like to give special thanks also to your staff, who's been very significant in helping us bring forth this program to the Burlington area. Ms. Rachel Hawley, Renee Ward, and Amy Nelson, they've been very instrumental in assisting us in our endeavor in terms of what we're trying to do here in Burlington. The Residential Neighborhood Program is a program that's been set up to assist low-income communities throughout North Carolina and South Carolina. It's an energy efficiency program designed to target Duke Energy Carolina's low-income customers. We deliver by neighborhood segments, and we target low-income neighborhoods throughout North Carolina and South Carolina. Each resident gets a home energy assessment at no cost to them, and we install several energy conservation measures, which I will go over briefly this evening with you all, and we also provide energy education to the residents of that community. We target low-income areas, and they are identified by meeting the 50% threshold of the community that meets the 200% of federal poverty guidelines. Those are guidelines as established by and recognized the U.S. Department of Energy. Duke Energy Carolina determines the eligibility of the neighborhoods, and we prioritize neighborhoods and specify the implementation of the order. The energy conservations that each of the members in the community will get are 15 compact fluorescent lights, CFLs, a hot water heater wrap. We don't wrap gas water heaters, only electric. We also work to make sure that the water temperature is kept at a reasonable temperature, which is typically around 120 degrees. We install low-flow faucet aerators as well as low-flow shower heads. wall plate thermometers, AC winterization kit, a year supply of HVAC filters, which tends to be a very significant value for the resident, a change filter calendar to remind them when to change their filters, and an air infiltration reduction measures, also known as air sealing. One of the best ways that this program can work, we work with our community leaders and partners to communicate those in the neighborhood to take advantage of this opportunity. Among the partners that we're working with to get the word out are the City of Burlington, obviously, the County of Alamance, the United Way of Alamance County Community Services Agency and its weatherization program, and the Allied Churches of Alamance County have all agreed to help us get the word out about this program. The whole improvement process involves a teams of surveyors, also known as energy technicians, that will go door to door within the community. We contact them by all the residents in the community will get first a letter. A couple of weeks later, they get a postcard, and then we head off with a kickoff event. So far, we've been doing this program since last year. As you know, Duke has merged with Duke Progress, and they've been involved a little longer, since 2009. It's a program on the Duke Progress side that Mr. Evans has been instrumental in developing there. We're merging and consolidating our programs, and part of that effort is the residential neighborhood program. Under the residential neighborhood program, these are the communities that we have served so far since last year. So we've serviced close to 3,500 homes and counting. We're currently also in the cities of Greensboro and Spartanburg, South Carolina. So the kickoff event for the neighborhood we're seeking to target in Burlington is going to be April 8th, Tuesday, 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. At North Park. We've already have a confirmation of Mayor Wall, who will be attending that, as well as Councilman Fawcett. However, anyone is available to attend. We provide a free dinner to the residents, and we spend about 50 minutes communicating to them what they can expect from the program. And then we also have daycare available, and then after about 50 minutes to an hour, people can fellowship and talk and ask questions about what they can expect from the program.
I knew you had to offer him a free dinner to get him there. You're not going to get any work out of him, that's for sure.
I'm not gonna leave that alone.
So this is just a couple of pictures, as you'll see in your monitor, of some of our past events. We're looking forward to serving the community of Burlington. Our target area is close to 700 households. It's the map area that you saw previously that included near Fawcett and Apple and further along. This is our crews. They are easily identifiable. Each vehicle in the neighborhood will be wrapped and it will say Duke Energy Residential Neighborhood Program, and then they will be uniformed in these brightly colored blue t-shirts. They cannot be missed, and they will have badges. So there should be no problem with misidentification of any type. They all travel together, and Mr. Evans will be there quite a bit as well, working with the crews. That's basically it. Do you all have any questions?
Questions or, questions or comments for Ms. Rona?
Okay, do you send out some sort of notification beforehand that you're, other than what press coverage we get here on this?
Yeah, yes, sir. They get a notice by mail, and then a couple of weeks later they get a postcard to follow up to remind them to come to the kickoff event, and then lets them know we're in the area. And then finally, the technicians appear in that neighborhood about a week in advance and provide door hangers to let them know we're in the area and we'll be there to serve them. We try to go door to door. We will make some Saturdays available for those who work during the day and who are not home. We typically don't take appointments, but if we need to, we will arrange that. But primarily, we're there, we've notified them. Each measure is installed shouldn't take more than an hour and a half or so on average, so we're not there to take up a lot of time. We try to get in and out, and then we explain once the measures are installed what they can expect and how to maintain those measures. They're really low-cost measures, and it's not uncommon for people to save anywhere from 20 to 30% on their bill once these measures are installed.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, what is the time frame that you have for this area?
Right now, we're estimating to be 6 to 8 weeks, but our commitment is to be there as long as it takes to get at least try to 80 to 85% of the residents that we're targeting.
And for Mr. Huffman's information, I accepted your invitation before I knew that there was going to be any dinner.
Well, you have your wonderful clerk to thank for the coordination of that.
Any other comments?
Thank you.
Thank you so very much, ma'am.
Thank
We
you for your
appreciate
time and
that.
consideration.
Thanks for
Thank
you
so
guys
much.
for coming as well. We appreciate it. Look forward to it.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the Code of Ethics. This time we recognize City Clerk Renee Ward. Ms. Ward, welcome.
Members of council, it's my responsibility to remind you of your duty to avoid conflicts of interest in matters that are before us. At this time, I ask if there are any potential conflicts concerning tonight's agenda.
Item 2 under new business, and I'll explain more when we get there, but I'd like to recuse myself from that discussion, but I'll explain more. Next item on the agenda is approval of minutes.
So moved. Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Adoption of the agenda.
Move we adopt the agenda as written.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Consent agenda. These items are typically non-controversial. If anyone has any questions about the following items, please let us know. Item 1A, temporarily close the following streets during Burlington Recreation and Parks Department special event, Burlington Active City Streets on Saturday, May 3rd, 2014, from 7:30 a.m. until 5 p.m. Front Street from Worth Street to Spring Street, Main Street from Davis Street to Front Street, Spring Street from Davis Street to Webb Avenue. B, to temporarily close the following streets during the Alamance Region's Annual Antique Car Club Show on Saturday, May 17, 2014, from 7 a.m. until 4 p.m. Front Street between Spring Street and Worth Street, Main Street from Front Street to Maple Avenue, City Parking Lot Number 1 behind Occasions Restaurant, City Parking Lot 2 adjacent to the depot. C, to approve a contract between the City of Burlington, City of Mebane, and Altos Greenways Incorporated for the Mebane, North Carolina Bicycle and Pedestrian Transportation Plan. Funds for the study are included in the current Burlington Graham MPO budget. D, Budget Amendment 2014-38, RICO appropriation spelled out in your agenda.
We approve the consent agenda.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? New business 2, just to make sure the council understands, this item was in front of us last meeting, and it was the Red Cross, I think the young lady's name was Brandy Marshall, that came and presented the same information to us. At this time, or since then, we've been asked at United Way to join in. So to make sure there's no conflict of interest on my part, I would ask that Mayor Pro Tem Huffman conduct this piece of business, and I would recognize Ms. Norwick to answer any questions that you may have. So I would ask to be recused.
First of all, Mayor, I move that you be recused.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Thank you.
Good evening, Councilman. I am here representing United Way with a request to temporarily close Front Street from Lexington Avenue to South Worth Street on April 28th from 3 p.m. to 10 p.m. for the United Way and Red Cross's downtown event, Taste of Alamance, conditional on our receiving our documents, insurance documents that have been requested from the vendors that will be serving alcohol at the event. The Taste of Alamance event has been held successfully by the Red Cross for a number of years at a different location at the Best Western. They had come to you last month about moving it to downtown, and I know that that was approved. In discussions with the Red Cross, Brandy, who presented to you, there was some concern about changes at the Red Cross and how their structure is. They've become much more of a regional and national organization. So Ms. Marchicello approached the United Way to be a partner with them so that we could have a seamless way of collecting funds and do that appropriately on a local level, not necessarily on their national level. They had some trouble with getting their sponsorships and logos approved and things of that nature. So they approached us, and that will be a joint venture between our two organizations. So we ask that that you reconsider closing the streets again for that same event, including United Way on that.
Okay, this is not a public hearing, but does anybody have any questions? Bob, you got any questions? Celia? None. All right, so you're asking from 3 p.m. to 10 p.m. on the 28th day of April. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And have you gotten the documents in line? But y'all know what documents. When do you need those and by what time? Okay.
And they are in the process as soon as we agreed to do this.
So
we have-
you realize the approval will be conditioned upon staff signing off on it. Do I have a
Absolutely.
motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you very much. Hope you join us. Thank you.
Thank you, council. Thank you, Ms. Norwick. Next item on the agenda, City Council will consider approving a change order number 2 for the East Burlington Nutrient Removal Improvements Contract and Budget Amendment 2014-39, the amount of $889,775 for a 30-inch force main placement. That is spelled out in the agenda as well. This time we recognize Mr. Patterson. Mr. Patterson, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Wall and Council. Here to give you an update on what happened with the force main and where we're at now, and request approval of the budget amendment. Just like to run through real quick the incident that occurred in January that led us to this. Of course, the East Plant was built in 1959. It's been upgraded through the years, and most recently the upgrades for the Jordan Lake pools, about $8 million, which includes construction, engineering design, construction management, and inspection. This is an overview of the plant. Sewage flows in from the city via the Haw River Interceptor 42-inch line into the pump station, then it's pumped up the hill to the treatment process, about 70 feet change in elevation. And it was this force main that we had the issues with. We had 2 breaks. One occurred on Friday, January 24th. It was about 28,500 gallons, a much smaller break, and then the catastrophic break on Monday the 27th, which took us about 2 days to get the flow stopped. The first break occurred up here near the equalization basin, and there's valves on the line. We were able to shut off the valve and direct the flow to the equalization basin. That's why that overflow is so much smaller. And by doing so, we were still able to utilize the plant to pump into the equalization basin and pretty much go business as usual with the treatment process. The second break occurred further down the hill at this red X here. When that occurred, it flooded, the flow came up, was being pumped up the hill, came out of the break of the force main, was flowing back down the hill and potentially flooding the pump station, which would cause major damage to all that equipment. So we had to shut off the pump station. In turn, the sewage backed up in the gravity line, overflowed the manholes. A quick overview of the time frame. That break occurred Monday the 27th at 6:20. By 7:20, we had notified emergency management and had staff on site scrambling to get pumps in place to make repairs. We called in a contractor that specializes in bypass pumping. They got the first bypass pump set up by 11 p.m. that night, the second one by 1 a.m. This slowed down the flow, but it did not capture all the flow. They had another larger 16-inch pump that they brought in, and we're in the process of getting the piping set up. During this time, this was a severe weather event, very cold weather, snow, and associated weather. The governor declared a state of emergency due to the weather. Our crews and the subcontractors all worked throughout all this weather, did a tremendous job to get this under control in the quickest amount of time as possible. The 16-inch pump was set up on Wednesday, the 29th, and the flow was stopped Wednesday afternoon. By our permit and statute, we are required to notify the state or issue public notice on any spill over 10,000 gallons, or any spill that reaches public waters. And normally our leaks or overflows are small. We get them stopped very promptly, and within a day we get that notice out. This break was unprecedented for us. We asked Diener's guidance, how do you want us to proceed, because we knew that we would not have the break stopped during this time. They advised us to get the break fixed, stop the leak, and they would visit the site, and then we would issue the press release. So the press release was issued about 72 hours after little under 72 hours after the break. And then we got the force main repaired the following weekend. Harold and Michael Lane and I went to the state to present to the Environmental Review Commission what happened. And at that meeting, Tom Reeder from Diener stood up and took responsibility for Diener. They did not have the authority to give us that extension on public notice. And we would have had done so had we not been directed. And in the future, we'll certainly adhere to those requirements. Because of the weather and the temperature, we were really lucky to minimize the environmental impact. There was no observed fish kill. The Pittsburgh water treatment plant was notified early in the process. They didn't have any samples that indicated any bacterial contamination, and so from that standpoint, the impact was minimal. There was still raw sewage that got in the river. The flow at that time was about 180 million gallons a day in the river. Our flow over that 2-day period was about 1.8 million gallons a day, so about 1% of the flow. Still significant, but all these factors made this less of an issue or less of a problem than it could have been. Certainly, if it was in the middle of summer, everybody would have approached this with a much different approach. So after we fixed the break, we got together our staff, our engineers, to try to determine what happened, what caused this break. Many factors came into play. There's no smoking gun. We can't do a CSI investigation. And there's not a lot of drama when you get engineers in a room talking about pipe. The pipe was laid directly on blue granite instead of having a gravel bedding stone, which would cushion the pipe. We had unusually cold temperatures, the freeze-thaw effect, and slightly increased pressure due to changes in operation for the Jordan Lake rules. However, those increase in pressures would be nothing out of the ordinary for that type of pipe. The pipe was also 55 years old. All these factors came into play. So what are our options? We put the line back in service. Everybody in the room said there's too much of a risk. We just had 2 breaks. We can't guarantee that this line's not going to break again. So then, what are the options? The first option we discussed was to install a brand new line, either parallel to this line or to route it around the aeration basin. Parallel to the line, there's a lot of stuff in the way. We know there's rock out there. It would probably be very, very difficult to install that line. The alternate route around the aeration basin would be longer. Again, the unknown rock, much more design would be required. So we looked at what can we do in place, and those options would be to line the line with a liner, or to replace the pipe in place with a new pipe. Remove this pipe and replace it. The liner would effectively reduce the diameter of the pipe from 30 inches to 27 inches, 27 and a half inches, which would impact our peak flow capacity. We also have the structural question of would that liner be adequate? Would it prevent this from happening again? All those factors considered, it was determined to proceed with the best option would be to remove and replace the line in place. So our engineers, Hazen and Sawyer, worked with our contractor that was on site for the nutrient upgrades. They were still on site and wrapping up the project. And they've ordered pipe and are proceeding to get ready to install it. The plan is to replace it with about 1,200 feet of 30-inch ductile iron pipe with a special coating that is meant for sewer piping. That will take about 6 to 8 weeks, and the estimated installation cost is about $890,000. And we'll continue bypass pumping while we're doing that installation. So that's a quick summary of what happened and where we are now. And then we're here to ask you to consider approving the change order number 2 for the contract and the associated budget amendment.
Questions for Mr. Patterson?
I have one.
Did we get 16-inch pumps as a standby for out there, or are we in the
We
plan?
brought in the 16-inch pump to act as the main pump, and the 8-inch pumps are standby.
Okay, you're just going to use 8 inches, not the 16, you won't purchase the 16?
Oh, to purchase? No,
Yeah.
we were not going to purchase a portable pump of that size. You have to use it and operate it, and plus just the sheer size of it and moving it.
Wouldn't be good as a standby?
Wouldn't
Yeah.
do that.
Okay.
Any other questions, Mr. Patterson?
Move we approve the change order number 2 for the East Burlington Nutrient Removal Improvements Contract for $889.75, 30-inch force main.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you, Mr. Patterson. I'm sorry?
In the budget amendment.
Yes, and the budget amendment to facilitate that, yeah.
Item number 4, please. City Council will consider approving an amendment to the contract between the City of Burlington and Kimley Horn and Associates for the Haw River Interceptor and approved budget amendment 2014-37 in the amount of $67,200 for professional service, and it is spelled out in the agenda. At this time, we recognize Mr. Patterson.
Thank you, Mayor Wall and Council. The Haw River Interceptor is the line that collects wastewater from most of the area town east and north of the railroad tracks. The flow gets to that pipe and travels to the treatment plant. Most of this line is about the same vintage as the line on the plant. It's a different material. It's a corrugated metal line with asphalt. We originally, in 2009, when there was American Recovery and Reinvestment Act funding, they were looking for projects for the stimulus funding. This was one project that we submitted. We contracted with Kimley Horn to design, get it shovel ready. We submitted it for funding. It did not receive enough priority points in the state's rating system in order to receive that funding. The Haw River Interceptor runs from the plant all the way up here to Graham Hopedale Road. It's a little over 12,000 feet. This first segment that we're talking about right now is shown in pink. It's about 3,600 feet. It's from the plant up to just south of Riverside Drive, I believe it is. So once we did not receive the stimulus funding, the timing was such that that's about the time that the Jordan Lake rules were approved. Our focus shifted on getting those plant improvements designed, get them under contract. And during that time, we looked at what the options with this pipe would be, whether replacement was the only option, or perhaps we could line it like we do some of our smaller pipes, gravity pipes in the system. And we're currently doing, just opened bids today on the 24-inch diameter Little Alamance Creek outfall, which we are lining. However, when we got into this, looking at this one, we decided that the best place would be to continue with the replacement. So we've been in discussions with Kimley Horn to renew their contract. At the time that it was not funded, that purchase order was canceled, and the unspent money on the contract was reverted to our reserve funding. Since 2009, environmental rules have changed, permitting requirements have changed. So we've talked with Kimley Horn to reassess where we are with that design, whether there's any new permitting required, and also to look at the original plan was to replace it with a parallel line. We wanted them to relook at removing that line and putting the new line back in place because there would be less impact. So they're going to look at that, look at what the options for pipe materials are. So the long and the short of it is we would ask approval of a budget amendment to restore the funding and also approve Amendment 1 to the contract, which is an additional $24,500, total budget amendment of $60,200 for this design work. And we would anticipate having them have this project ready so that we could bid it late spring and have it ready to proceed with construction at the first part of the next fiscal year budget in July.
Questions or comments from Mr. Patterson?
Yeah, I've got a comment, I guess, maybe. I'd like for our citizens to understand that this is part of our, I would say, updating our Asian infrastructure that we're going to have to do occasionally like this, and it's going to be costly. So I just want to, the citizens have to understand that this is part of the water and sewer project. You got to have water and you got to have sewer. So, I don't want them to complain because this is a necessary evil that we have to go through to do. But I'm sure that we will get some hits from that. But I just want the citizens to understand that this is what we're doing, and it's something that we have to do.
That's correct, Mr. Foss. And I failed to mention that with the, in future budget years, we hope to continue with this line with the design and replacement in either one or two phases.
So how much of this line is being, we're looking at this graph right here, is it the red portion that's being put in?
Yeah, it's the red portion, so it's about a third of it, more or less,
Okay.
this phase.
But this design that we're doing here, will be for the whole line or just this
No,
portion
sir,
of it?
just this, to reassess this portion, update the design, and get it ready for bid.
Okay. So when it was done in looking for the stimulus dollars, was that for the design for the whole line all the way up to, where'd you say, Graham Hopedale?
No, sir, it was just this section in red.
Just this section? Okay. And what's the difference, but is it the same, the pipe that's in the ground now, is it the same all the way, both the red and the yellow?
I believe it is.
So whatever materials you end up deciding to use down here at the lower end of it, it's going to be the same material up the upper part, is that correct?
Most likely. We could bid it as alternates and look for, whatever the least
What I'm trying to
expensive
figure out
installed
is,
option would
is
be,
it,
but we would prefer to have one consistent material.
yeah, what I'm trying to figure out is really if, once this work, engineering work is done here, a lot of the decisions were already have been made, and so the next go-round won't be near as much as far as engineering is concerned, will it?
Some of those design considerations would be solved, but there's still the surveying and the field work and then the actual design based on the site conditions. So it's hard to say whether it would be less expensive or the same.
I think, back to David, your question and Mr. Fawcett's comments, as when we testified in the legislature, this is going to be a substantial project.
Sure.
And we will probably we're working now and looking at how we would finance that, and this is going to take this is a major line because Bob, the East Plant service not only, of course, our residents, also services the towns of Elon,
Yes,
Gibsonville.
parts of Elon, Hall River, Gibsonville.
This is the major feed that comes into the East Line, so East Plant. And we will also, I think, as we finish this project, we'll take a look at the, probably the force main at the South Plant. Now that interceptor line or the outfall line there it doesn't have the age as this one does, the South Plant obviously, but this is, I think this is where we would be looking, putting an awful lot of attention over the next 18 months.
Bob, where does this line end? Is it beyond Graham Hopedale Road?
Yes. Of course, there's lines that connect it, but this size line, I believe it's 42 inches all the way up to Graham Hopedale.
Well, this what takes it in, all that area feeds to this, all
Right.
the smaller lines, and brings it
Right.
back down, and it's pumped back up to the
But
plant.
in 2009, I believe the estimated cost of just the red portion was about $2.5 million. We
Wow.
haven't had the updated cost yet.
Any other questions or comments, Mr. Patterson?
So, so the phases you're talking about here, do we have any idea I think what CELA was getting around saying is that, there's a cost involved here, and you're going to see it, see pressure put on the council to have to raise rates to be able to pay the bonds that we may end up having to float to do this. I mean, this is not something that you can just do out of the regular operating budget on a year-to-year basis without having some sort of increase. And we're basically putting the citizens on notice that this is what it takes to make a system work. And our infrastructure begins to age like this, we've got to start looking at those, replacing not just this, but the part of the collection lines in the older parts of the city, of which we're already doing. We're putting aside money each and every year to do that. So it's really just kind of fast-tracking here some of the larger lines that we're already doing in as far as collections, sewer collection lines around the older parts of the city already, is it not?
That's correct.
And philosophically, to finance this over a period of time only makes sense because it's going to last a long period of time. This is you would hope another 50 years when this line is completed.
So it makes sense to float bonds to do that.
It might not be a bond, it might just be some other type of financing, but it would be distributed over a period of time, and that would also equalize your potential fee increases or rate increases too.
Any other comments?
Move we approve the amendment to the contract between the city and Kimberly Horn, $67,200 for professional services, and approve the budget amendment 2014-37.
Second.
Got a motion and second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you, Mr. Patterson.
Thank you.
Item number 5, City Council will consider awarding a contract to Armand Construction LLC in the amount of $97,968 for the Sellers Mill Road sidewalk project along Sellers Mill Road between Piedmont Way and Hanover Road and along Broadview Drive from Sellers Mill Road to the end. Funding is available utilizing safe routes to schools, funds made available by the Federal Highway Administration. This time we recognize Mr. Rue. Welcome, Mr. Rue.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. On February 25th, the engineering department received 6 bids for sidewalk improvements along Sellers Mill Road and Broadview Drive. These sidewalks are intended to serve Broadview Middle and Cummings High Schools. The city and the North Carolina Department of Transportation had previously entered into an agreement to fund sidewalk in this area. Funding is made available by utilizing Safe Route School funds, and these funds are made available by the Federal Highway Administration. And the funds will be administered through the North Carolina Department of Transportation. Once the project has been completed, the city will be reimbursed for the actual expenses associated with the design, utility relocation, and construction. Armand Construction was the apparent low bidder on the project in the amount of $97,968, and staff would recommend a consideration of award to Armand Construction for this amount.
Completion date?
Completion date is prior to June 30th.
Questions for Mr. Rue? Comments?
We'll sort of finish up that sidewalk project in that area, Broadview, Cummings.
Yes, it will.
Do we finish it up, or?
There'll still be a gap between Piedmont Way and Mebane Street,
Yeah.
But that's a more intensive type construction effort. We'll have to look at other means.
Make a motion, you need a motion?
Yes, sir.
To award the contract to Armand Construction LLC.
Second.
Got a motion second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you, Mr. Rue. Brings us to public comment period. We have several. First one is Elizabeth Reed. Welcome, Ms. Reed. Topic, public transportation. If you would just state your name and address for the record, please.
Thank you. Elizabeth Reed, 2439 Glencoe Street in Burlington. And I am Elizabeth Reed and live 3.5 miles from here. Thank you again for the opportunities to speak with you tonight regarding public transportation. And I'm thrilled to have the council indicate that this is an issue that is important to you. When I look back through my records, I surprised myself to realize that it had been 2 years since I last spoke to you about the need for a bus system in Burlington. At that time, I spoke from the perspective of being the former director of the tourism agency in Hillsborough, but a Burlington resident, and how we benefited in Hillsborough from having a free circulator bus in that tiny town of 5,500. That bus was funded through a grant from the NCDOT's Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality Program. 2 years later, I now speak to you as someone who works in downtown Burlington and can see how our customers and employees in downtown would benefit from increased transportation options. Currently, I see customers and employees arrive via car, bike, foot, biobus, taxi, scooter, and even Amtrak. I have heard laments from people who wish they had a way to shop in downtown Burlington, but didn't have a good way to get to the heart of our community. I have watched downtown Burlington thrive and become alive in a way that would have been hard to imagine even just 3 years ago, and I have seen firsthand how every new customer that can access businesses can make a difference in that business's livelihood. I am thrilled to be a part of Downtown Burlington's event committee planning the successful Fourth Fridays, evenings, and other downtown festivals. I want everyone in our community to have the opportunity to access these activities as well as those that do have cars. I urge you to take action regarding creating a public transportation system in Burlington, and I hope that the next time I speak to you, it is sooner than 2 years from now, and that it is to say thank you for taking action.
Thank you, Ms. Reed. Next, Mr. Ian Baltudis.
Thank you. Good to see you gentlemen again. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Ian Baltudis, 2516 South Moriarty, Burlington.
Thank you.
In 1954, President Eisenhower penned a speech to governors of the country urging their support for what seemed an audacious $50 billion investment in America. The proposal aimed at improving the flow of goods from farms to market, easing congestion in urban areas, and meeting the needs of Cold War defense. The funding request stemmed from nearly 50 years of work led by Thomas McDonald and focused squarely on building a transportation system to meet the country's needs 20 years in the future. The investment was unlikely to ever see revenues generated to pay for its construction and maintenance. That speech was the first national push for what today is considered one of the largest economic drivers in Alamance County. The U.S. interstate system would become the largest federal construction project ever undertaken. The project, which was projected to forever be a drain on state and federal budgets, has become one of the most important economic investments in our nation's history. It helped propel the country's growth as a world leader. It shortened the travel time between cities. It redefined urban growth. It fostered industry upon industry and fueled the expansion of our nation. Early settlers built cities along rivers and waterways. Today's developments can be found along transportation corridors. Transportation is the instrument through which we will determine the direction of our future expansion. Cities and populations stranded far from road and rail will struggle. Those who invest in infrastructure will thrive. Our city was one of the lucky ones to have the interstate drawn through our backyard in 1955. Imagine where we would be had that line been penned 20 miles north, south, east, or west. Today, the pen for future expansion is in our hands. The investment is thousands of times smaller, but no less important to the Burlington of 2034. Today's metrics show that user fees will never cover the costs of public transit, but neither did the 1954 analysis of the highway user fee system. In truth, the whole nation's driving, travel, and transportation habits changed so drastically once the system was in place that no one could have ever imagined the future benefits to society. The same is true for the future of busing in Burlington. We will never be able to quantify the benefits of grandchildren riding the bus each afternoon to visit their grandparents, of our senior citizens riding to health services and community center programs, of students riding to further their education, of workers on their daily commutes, and of parents riding for errands around town. As we near the time for decision on the future of public transit in Burlington, consider what our city would look like with a sound investment in busing corridors. It's not about where our city will be tomorrow, next week, or next year. It's about where we want to be 20 years from now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Baltudis. Thank you. Next, Mr. Alfonso.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. I'm sorry to see that Mr. Butler's not here. I wanted to thank him for calling for a vote on public transportation this month. Mr. Fawcett, if I read the newspaper correctly, you also called for a vote this month whether other cities are in it or not, and I think that's the right way to go. I want to thank you as well for finally getting in the game. I've understood that this decision is fraught with political risk because it involves some minor taxes in a conservative county. I want to remind you that these taxes are on the general statutes of the legislature, have been passed by the legislature, and they're not a fiscally liberal group by any stretch of the imagination, I would consider. You, Mayor Wall, you've called this public transportation a loser because it's not going to make any money for the city, but the city dumps nearly $1 million on the golf course every year, and you lose to 250, maybe more than that every year. So, and no one seems to get agitated over that. When wealthy companies come into the county to do business, I've seen this council give them tax breaks in the millions of dollars, and you do that in the face of opposition from both sides of the political spectrum without a problem. You know, so I don't understand why public transportation should have such a hard road to hoe when there's been overwhelming support in these chambers for public transportation as opposed to those opposing it. Burlington would be the center of this system as it's been laid out, the hub and spoke system or whatnot. It seems silly that you would ask other cities to make a decision on this before you have, especially when Burlington has access to all the upfront money that's going to build this system. Mr. Wall, again, you stressed your leadership qualities this election season. You talked about decisions that affect people's lives. This is one of these decisions, and I think leadership calls for you to bring this to a vote, whether you're going to vote for it or against it. And make no mistake, I want you to vote for this. But leadership would call for you to bring this to a vote, either way, because that's what leaders do. They step up and say, hey, okay, we got to do this, or we're not going to do this, but this is going to be a vote, and we're going to bring it to this. It should be done now. It's time. Just bring it to a vote already this month. That's it. That's all we have to do, is make a simple vote.
30 seconds.
That's good. Thank you very much.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Wall.
City Council comments. Next item. Any comments from council? Our next council meeting will be Tuesday, March 18th at 7 p.m. A reminder about the free bulk waste collection, March 3rd through May 2nd. A couple of items for Mr. Owen. Next meeting, if we could have an update on the retreat items that we have completed at this point in time and the items to move forward. Also, next meeting, an update on the other municipalities that have interest in public transportation. And then the follow-up on our conversation from last night in reference to the state and the privilege license. How much is that revenue stream worth to the city of Burlington? Do you have any idea off the top of your head?
What, $500,000 now? It's $500,000 as we speak per year.
And a penny is worth what on the taxes?
400,000.
400,000?
400,000.
Okay. Just a thought, and we don't have to make a decision about it tonight, but I would like you can give consideration for changing the work session from maybe from 7 o'clock to 5 o'clock. Just a thought after we've done it 3 months in a row. It seemed to work pretty well, but Councilmember Butler is not here, so.
What, go back to 7?
Go back to, well, we could, what I'm asking is, would you even consider maybe keeping it at 5, just at a regular work session meetings as opposed to starting at 7? Just something we could consider. Also want to congratulate the Alamance News and the Times News, and especially Molly McGowan for the awards that you guys accepted. Don't know anything about Thomas, but anyway. Sorry, Thomas. We'll get to you next month. Any other comments from council members? Yeah. Motion to adjourn. You might not. We're hoping.